Hey guys, my name is Lainey. So we're going to get started here on the workshop for creating story Bibles. And I thought I'd say hey to everybody first before we get into it. If there's like last minute stragglers coming in. So nice to see you guys. I'm seeing a lot of names I've never seen before. So hey. I'm curious, what's everybody's like time zone? Because it's 9 a.m. here. I'm usually up, so I'm not as tired as I thought I would be. Nice. Hey guys. Also, low-key, a little bit nervous. I've never done a solo live show on my channel in like 5 years. So definitely took a Xanax before hopping on here. Okay. Let me... Okay. So many comments are coming through. Okay, so if you don't know what this is and you happen to be a subscriber of my channel anyway, I was lucky enough to be asked by the ladies who have organized the Evergreen Oasis Writing Retreat. They asked me to do a workshop on story Bibles because I've talked about those a lot on my channel. I incorporate them in pretty much every single work in progress for the past 3 books that I've written. So I am a writer, not agented yet. But yeah, I am pursuing traditional publishing. I primarily write YA fantasy. That is my jam. But these story binders can be used for any genre, any age category. So you can definitely learn something from this workshop, even if you don't write fantasy. So yeah, I wanted to thank Tamara, Dana, Cache, and Carrow for inviting me. Very excited to be here. And if you don't know anything else about me, I've been on YouTube now for 7-ish years come August. So been around the game a little bit. I started on BookTube, and then the more I incorporated my writing, I kind of shifted over to AuthorTube. But I feel like I straddle the line a little bit. I read a lot of adult romance. So a lot of like the book recommendations that I do on my channel are adult romance books. And I co-host or co-created Smutathon with my best friend here on BookTube, Riley from Riley Marie. Writing wise, I also host a writing and publishing podcast with Alexa Dunn and Kat from Catty-tastic. We're on a little bit of a hiatus right now because of the pandemic, but we're hoping to pick that up again soon. Okay, so I think we've spent a little bit time here on the introductions and the welcome. I'm so excited everybody's here. The chat's moving pretty quickly, both on StreamYard and on YouTube is going too fast for me to catch up on. So I hope I'm going to get everybody's comments. Also, questions are definitely encouraged because I wrote out my outline last night. It's like 4 pages long, and I'm so high-key nervous that I'm not going to make 1 hour of content here. So questions would be awesome. Okay, so what is a story Bible? Also, want to make sure that you guys can hear me. I thought I was having some mic problems before, but I thought I maybe fixed it before I went live. But if you guys can't hear me, either turn me up or tell me to speak louder. Yeah, so story Bibles, what are they? So the way that I like to think of what a story Bible is kind of like that iceberg diagram where the tip of the iceberg is obviously your story, your book. It's what the readers see. And then pretty much everything below that iceberg is what I consider your story binder. So it's everything that the readers probably won't see, but it's there for your knowledge so that you're completely aware of everything that's going on in your story. There's a lot of things that can happen in a story binder, and I'm going to go through like 3 or 4 of mine a little bit later on. And then kind of, because I feel like I'm also a very visual learner. So seeing how people put together their story binder, I think is also important and can help you decide what you want in yours. Okay, so if I keep looking to the side, it's because I'm looking at my outline. So it's also another great way to have another fun use of your creative outlet, because I like to think of myself as creative, but I'm only creative when it comes to writing. I cannot sing. I cannot draw to save my life. So this is like another way for me to put another part of my creative self and really organize things and build things in a different sense than just creative writing. So this is like one of my story binders. It is a binder. So we'll talk about that. And with each skill or with each draft and each project that I do, my story binders have definitely evolved, because I've kind of threw everything into the very first one I made because I didn't know what I would like. By the time I got to my second one, it was a lot more organized, and I knew what I wanted in them and what I thought worked and what was useful for me. Also another thing about me is that, especially if you watch my channel, I like a lot of cute shit and big into stationery, making things look aesthetically pleasing. So I go all out in my story binders. I put just as much effort in my story binders as I do my actual books, because I really like to put my creative spin on it. And also that it goes into, I like to plan too. I have a planner. And yeah, so that's just another great way to use your creative well. And then the best story binders are definitely ones that evolve with each draft, and you'll kind of see that going through. Hopefully you'll be able to see it. My webcam is just the one that's on my laptop, so who knows? But then I'm also going to be sharing my screen, because as much as physical binders are great, I've recently started using Scrivener as a story binder for my most recent work in progress. I mean, that was like a whole different adjustment and different, but I also really liked how I did it with this project. So maybe it just depends what your project is like. I think what the important thing is for you to know is that a story binder is whatever helps you, and that it doesn't have to be super extra like mine tend to be. It can be simple as long as you are getting out of it what you think you need out of it. And it's like mostly like a scratch pad of figuring out your story, and it can be used at any time. Because that's one question that I get a lot is, when can I create a story binder? Story binders can be created at any point. And you'll see that I've created my story binders at different points in the process. My first one I created before I even jumped into the story. A lot of my drafts that I've written during NaNoWriMo. So this is a great way to use Preptober as like a way to like build your story binder if that's what you want. But then for my second story binder, I really didn't start gathering and putting things together until after I finished the first draft, and I was going through revisions for the first draft. And then this recent one, the one I did in Scrivener, I didn't do until after my second draft. But there's a caveat to that, because I was using primarily a notebook to write down everything that I was feeling about the story. And then I kind of transferred all of that into Scrivener. So yeah, when should I say? Yeah, so I did go over that. Okay, hold on. Let me flip my paper. Okay, so you want to know how to get started with a story binder and what to include. I've linked in the description of this video down below some great resources to kind of start out. And this is a great example of kind of anything you can kind of throw in, and that this resources down below I've used especially for my very first story binder, because I didn't really know what I wanted to include in it. So I kind of put everything into it. And there's some blank pages in that story binder because I ended up not using that. But this was also when I had an unlimited printer, and I was like, let's print all the things. And yeah, I didn't end up using all of them, but it wasn't on my dime, and I don't work there anymore, so they'll never know that I use their printer. And then yeah, so the two things that I linked down below that I think are great starting off points. The first one is E.A. Deverell. I don't know. I think it's a writer, but I have no idea. I've only used one section of this person's website, and they have a ton of different single sheet things. Yeah, to see someone that says they love them too. they have a lot of great sheets of how to kind of build a character or help you with plot, help you with setting. It's a whole bunch of different sheets. They're very useful. Let me at least show one of them. Also, they're aesthetically pleasing to look at. So that was another big reason why I liked them. So this is like one of their sheets. You can tell it's blank because I never ended up using it. But it's a way to like kind of work through the writing process if you're kind of stuck, trying to figure things out. When it comes to character, plot, foils in the story, the outlining really helps, especially with world building. So I know world building is a huge thing. And then I also linked down Natalia Lee. She's one of my favorite AuthorTubers. I know she's going to be presenting later, pretty sure later today. And she has done Preptober workbooks for Preptober right before NaNoWriMo starts. And I've used her sheets for pretty much every story binder that I've used. I'm not quite sure if she did one for 2019. She probably did, but I know I did one for 2018. Like I got her ones from that, and those were super, super helpful. So highly recommend her resource. It was really great. Yeah, so I would just print out her Preptober workbook, 3-hole punch them and stick them in my binder. So yeah, those are my two favorite. I think Vivian Reese, I think she has some free resources too. And I'm not quite sure. I think you could probably YouTube story Bibles and you'd find other people who have done them and have better resources than maybe I do. So I do see a question here, so I'm going to pause to answer that. How many story binders do you use for your story? And do you use each book in a series? So at least for me right now, I have never written a series because I'm trying to get traditionally published. I can only write one book at a time. But I have only used one binder for one story. So like this one right here, this was for my pirate fantasy. This one was for the whole book. It's a great way to centralize everything in one story so that you know what to look for. And we'll peek in this in just a little bit. So I can show you how I organized it. Oh yeah, someone else just said Brittany Wang's story Bible. I saw her video last night when I was researching how to put in my outline here. So yeah, I did see hers, and hers looks great too. So AuthorTube also has a lot of great resources for everybody. Yeah, so so yeah, first you're gonna want to get a binder if you want to do a physical story Bible. I recommend Target for great story binders. They all are very aesthetically pleasing, like I said before, and that is my thing. But if you don't like, if you don't really care about that, literally any binder is gonna do. I go for things that like inspire me. So if I look at something and I'm like, yeah, that's gonna definitely work for this project, that is what I go by, and then I buy it. Target is really the right place. Walmart, I know I'm kind of saying things that are like in the United States, but that's obviously where I'm from. TJ Maxx, also love that store because they are cheap. So that's where I get a lot of my binders from. Someone else said Sarah Cannon has good resources, so definitely make sure you write down her channel to check her out for other resources as well. And then, well, this is an interesting question. Someone asked, what do you think of using wikis as a digital story binder? I've actually never used wikis at all, but I'm assuming that it would still be beneficial for you. I'm going to go a little bit later in other digital story binders that I really didn't think of until last night, other than a Scrivener one. So we'll get into that in a little bit later in the workshop. But that's actually something interesting, and I might actually look into that. Everything's going so fast. Okay. I actually don't know how to get rid of this comment. Not that I want to get rid of it. But yeah, okay. Oh, yeah. Okay, this is a good one too. Plain binders can be good too if you want to decorate them. Definitely. I do that with my planner all the time. I like go super extra on stickers and washi tape and stuff. So that would be, yeah, that's a really good one too. Okay, so one thing that I really like with physical binders is dividers. This way, you can separate the story by find things more easier. I really hope you guys can see this. So like up here, I have brainstorming, characters, outline and plot, world building, and research. And we'll get into a little bit more about what each of those things mean to me in a little bit. Okay. And so first one is brainstorming. So I'm a big supporter of handwriting, not to the actual book. I don't think I can handwrite my actual novel. I need to like do that typing, but everything else, all of my pre-writing is written in a notebook, or handwritten with my hand. I find this is a really great way to put less pressure off yourself when you're writing. And also, for some reason, I think I can like write faster than I can type from things that are happening in my brain. I don't know if that makes sense or if anybody else can agree. But there's just something about writing it physically in a notebook, especially when I'm brainstorming and plotting and outlining, that really opens up my creativity a lot more than doing all of that work in a computer. That sounds so bizarre. It doesn't make sense because I can type faster. I don't know. This is really weird. I can't decode what that means for my brain. But brainstorming, I use always physical handwriting. Sorry, I keep switching through all these different binders. Okay, so for brainstorming, I can see that I have some. I'm just going to read some of these off. So I did use Natalia Lee's brainstorming sheet in her Preptober workbook a lot for this. And for at least this project, which was my Sharp Hollows project, which was YA Fantasy, The Mummy meets National Treasure, I guess. I started doing this the October before I started writing the book in November for NaNoWriMo. So I used this a lot to figure out what kind of story I wanted to tell. So a lot of like all my old brainstorming and outlining pieces of paper are now 3-hole punched into here. And that I've always kept, because even though with those revisions, things change, obviously with draft to draft, I still had like all the old initial brain dumps for it. And that's been really helpful when you go back to revise, because maybe you could bring something back that you took out during revision that you thought, oh yeah, that was a good idea. How can I incorporate that? So it's a great way to keep everything that's ever been involved with one project in one place. And then the next part was characters. So with characters, this is the one I feel like I always have the most fun with, no matter what stage I make my story binders in. Characters are great for this book. I did a lot of character studies before I actually wrote the characters for the first draft. So I put a lot of thought into like their Myers-Briggs letters. Is that the Myers-Briggs identification? I'm an INFJ. A lot of my characters are extroverts, so that is very different for me because I need to know how real people talk to people instead of me not wanting to talk to anybody. So those have been always really helpful to like read these different personalities and how people interact, or how they would think through a problem, how they would decide something. Also, I'm a Libra. I can never decide anything. So reading through some of these other things have been really helpful for me. And then another thing that I've also put in, not so much in this one, but in my pirate book, I love aesthetics. We've already talked about how I am trapped by superficial, vain things. Oh, wait, hold on, pause. Someone asked what the Myers-Briggs test is. It's a personality. There's like 16 personalities that everybody can fall into technically. So I think I already forget what the INFJ is. Are we judgment? No, I forget. Are we the wise old man? I feel like INFJ is the wise old man picture on that website. But I obviously means I'm an introvert. And it's 16personalities.com and spelled out 16, not the actual number, spelled out the word. And it's about a 20-minute quiz. So when you go through 20 minutes of 4 characters, which is what I did for that project, it was an hour of my time, but I love pre-writing. That's probably one of my favorite things to do aside from the actual writing. I do not like revising. So it's definitely writing the first draft, pre-writing, and then everything else. But that was a great way for me to learn the characters before I actually started writing them. And I mean, characters change when you're writing them anyway, but it's a nice kind of starting off point, at least for that project. So I didn't really do that with some of the other ones. But I do highly recommend checking out 16personalities.com. Yeah, or is it the number 16personalities.com? I'm not quite sure. Type in 16personalities.com in Google and you will find the website. But I do often use that. But recently, and I'll talk about this in my most recent project, I did do 16 personalities. I do that for all of my characters, but I've recently really gotten into astrology and the zodiac signs and how the zodiac signs interact with each other. And that's been like super, super fun. That's been more fun than the 16 personalities, in my opinion. But we'll get into that a little bit later. Okay, so someone said it's a number. So 16, the number 16, personalities.com. Yeah. So, okay. So yeah, someone just said that. Just want to make sure people know. And then, so aside from that, back to me being materialistic, I guess. I love making aesthetics for my characters. So I did a lot of the 9 block aesthetics that you see a lot on Twitter. I do a lot of those now, because that helps, again, visually, because I'm a visual learner. So it helps me kind of see the vibe and see the characters like that too. And I also, when I had a color printer, printed them all out and put them in my story binder, and you'll see that later too. Another great thing to put in the character section is family trees. I tend to write a lot of books about really complicated family trees. And it's always helpful to have those all written out. There's some characters or some children of so-and-so that are never mentioned in the book, but at least I know that so-and-so had this kid, even if it's never mentioned. So again, part of the iceberg diagram. I almost said ice cream diagram, and that doesn't make sense. Someone asked what my sign was, and I am full-on Libra. And my moon sign and my rising sign are both Leos. So yeah. Oh, yes. Someone else, I did not mention this. Someone else said D&D alignment is also really great for characters. I agree. I did that with my most recent work in progress too. If you're curious, I am a chaotic neutral. Always will be. So yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think there's a lot of different quizzes for D&D alignments. If you don't know what this is, it's Dungeons and Dragons alignments for your Dungeons and Dragons characters. So there are different, there's a lot of different quizzes to figure out what your alignment is. I just Googled D&D alignment quiz and I found one. So yeah, but again, those are fun. It's getting to learn your characters. It's getting to kind of feel that how they're more fleshed out and how they're really 3D when you really get to know how your character works, and how they think things through. Yeah. So, okay. Yeah. Okay. I'm just trying to make sure that no one's asking questions. If I didn't answer your question, please say it again. It's because everything's moving quickly and I'm really nervous. Okay, Enneagram is another one. I honestly, every time I take my Enneagram quiz, I always forget what I am. So yeah, that's also another great resource to help build and figure out your characters. Someone asked, do you have any digital recommendations for making family trees? I've also all drawn them. But PowerPoint, if you have PowerPoint or even Word document, like they're called their smart art. I do this for my actual job when I have to make hierarchy organizational charts for everybody that's in like my department. They have like pre-made templates that you can use that resemble family trees. That's a thing if you have PowerPoint or Word, Microsoft Word. Okay, yeah, so that's another great, all these great other suggestions I never even thought of. Okay, so I think that's it for characters. Oh wait, another thing, this is kind of like just a pro tip that I've always said when creating story binders. I know like names, people get like so hung up on names and they don't know. I'm someone who has to have the perfect name for each character, and I will spend 2 hours looking for a character name that I think fits their whole vibe. But one thing that I do a lot for each of my projects is I'll find like the vibe of what all these names in this world would be like, and I write them all down. I have an example of this, and it looks super extra. A great way to find these, besides looking up character lists or names online, is that whenever I finish watching a movie, I'll watch all of the closing credits and spot names that I really like, and I'll just write them all down. I really like that. It goes a lot faster. But yeah, so then I'm left, look at this, with all these names that I think sound cool and 2 pages worth. And it often, a lot of the times I find that names can either double as last names, they can double as country, city names, just kind of depending on what you want to do. And then I'll cross out the name when I use it. So when I come up across this like obscure character that's only in 1 or 2 scenes that doesn't really have that much to do after, but I need a name for them, I go to this list and I'm like, yeah, this sounds like a good name. And I'll cross it out and put it in the book. Yeah, so that's a really good one too. Okay, so we're going to move on from what you can include in like the character section to what you can include in like the outline or the plot. I guess this is different than brainstorming. I don't know how, but the outline. So I'm an outliner to an extent. I do have like a video on my channel where I talk about how I outline, and I typically follow that with every work in progress. I have like a general idea of like what everything happens. I tend to not know what the end or the end of the book is going to be. Like the final image, I don't really know until about the 3rd act of like how I want to end it. But how I outline is I outline by acts. So I'll completely outline Act 1 and then I'll write it. And then while I'm writing Act 1, I'll come up with ideas of what I think the 2nd act needs to include. So I'll like kind of jot those down in like a brain dumpy kind of way. And then once I finish Act 1, which I make sure that all acts end on like a character making a decision that changes the direction of the story, then I stop, reevaluate, I'll outline the 2nd act, and then I'll write the 2nd act. And then so on and so forth for the 3rd act. I work in a 3rd act structure or a 3-act structure. That's how my brain likes to work. However, I'm always changing up what I think helps me with what each different story is kind of different. So, but that's how I usually outline. So all of those like little brain dumps that I write for the outlining, I'll put into that section. So that way I can follow what I've been thinking and what I think is going to be happening next. So the biggest divider that I think happens in story binders is the world building. Again, specific to fantasy, but not necessarily. I think you could have a big world building section for even contemporary novels. So for world building, I have a lot of sheets on like geography. What's the geography like? What is the climate like? Politics, religion, all those kind of important things. I also have like aesthetic mood boards for what I visually think that the world looks like, because that also really helps me. Maps are also really important. I am not a map maker. I'm not good at maps, so my drawings are very elementary, but it gets the job done when characters are traveling. I'm like, I don't know where they're going next. So I look down and I see, oh yeah, that's next to X country. I guess we're going there next. So yeah, that's really been helpful for me too. And then also, again, kind of like in the line of like the naming list that I showed earlier, the listing out city names or country names is really helpful too. So yeah, I'm like talking and reading the comments at the same time, so I probably sound super spacey. Yeah, so, and then moving on from world building, research is typically my last section in the story binders, the physical ones at least with grabbing a story binder with this one, which is the fantasy, the mummy-esque book. A lot of my world was based on the Industrial Revolution of America. So I did a lot of research on the Industrial Revolution and printed out a lot of those like articles and essays about that and stuck them in here so that I could always reference them. Also printed out a lot of black and white pictures from the time to kind of get the feel of like the grit and sadly the desperation of the Industrial Revolution, especially for children. So I put that a lot in there as well. And then craft research documents I put in there too, beat sheets, romantic subplot beat sheets I put in there too, because all of my books feature romance, and craft wise, like 3-act structures and other conflicts, just a whole bunch of things. A lot of things on the NaNoWriMo blog site, I guess, have a lot of good resources for writing. I know Susan Dennard has a lot of great writing advice and templates, I think, too, for helping writers as well. So yeah, okay. I feel like I'm missing a lot of comments. Okay. This is why one person, I don't want any dead air, but I want to keep talking. Yeah. Okay. So, yeah. So this one, so creating story Bibles is so intimidating. I mean, it is, because like with this one, it's so thick and I've only used maybe like 25% of what is in here. So yeah, it really is finding what works for you, finding what you like and what you want to see in it. And it might be helpful and it might not be. So it's really kind of a trial and error. I do a lot of trial and error stuff with writing too. And so if it does not work out, like printing all of those sheets that I never used. And then, okay, so I think we finished what to include, but now I'm going to, oh wait, no, one more thing. Had to flip the page. Another thing that I've started adding in my story binders is my query and how I would pitch the book. This has been really helpful for kind of like post first revision for me, because then, or even first draft. After the first draft, I have told myself the story, right? So I kind of know what I want it to be in the next draft. So I usually write a really, really rough, really, really bad query of how this book should be exciting to everybody else. And I also do a lot of pitches. Like there's a lot of pitch contests on Twitter. So I try to limit the pitch to like 140 characters or less, whatever the Twitter thing is, so that it's kind of like your elevator pitch of describing your story. Something quick, something that makes it interesting. That's always like the hardest part, right? How to make your story sound interesting to everybody else. So that's been really helpful too, to kind of go through that. I know some people that have put agent research or industry research in their story binders as well. That's also a really great idea if you want to reference that more frequently. And then someone said they hit their second bingo, and I want to know what I said that made you do that. Okay, so, okay. And then another really important thing, and this is more fantasy specific, I guess, but magic system. That's also really, really important to know 1000%, because if people in your story are questioning your magic system, something went wrong. And also, if you're questioning your magic system and you don't understand how something works, you need to figure that out. So at least in my pirate book, and I can kind of glance through how I organized my magic system and wrote it down for you guys. Also, because that magic system is now void because I'm rewriting that book and everything has changed. So typical for me having to rewrite everything. Okay, question. Do you include all of your queries and pitches in your story Bible so you can look back and see what worked and what didn't for the future? For my pirate book. So my pirate fantasy was what got me into Author Mentor Match. And that's a mentorship program that's run by Alexa Dunn. And I used the query that I had for that. I put that in here because I'm like, well, this query worked for now to get me a mentor, but I don't know if it will work after revision, and it won't because I'm changing the whole book. But I put that query in there. It also made me feel good because I'm like, at least this query worked. And then pitches, just a lot of pitches, and I'll show that. There's like 4 or 5 different pitches of how to pitch at least this book. But I always planned to keep those ones in there because I like looking back and seeing where the story has evolved and come from the very first draft. Yeah, so yeah, magic systems, they're a beast. Oh my gosh, that's why I'm with the third project that I'm working on right now. Has no magic system. I didn't want to deal with it. Yeah, okay, so yes, this is also a really good tip if you want to do that. I've never done this before, but I think Kate Kavanaugh does. I feel like I've seen her do a video where she's talked about doing it before getting into the book. This is also a really, really great tool, especially because, and I know Alexa Dunn has done a video on how to make good middles, and it's the promise of the premise, basically. So the premise of your query, you want to deliver on that middle. Yeah, I think writing a query to jumpstart, what's good readers going to be wanting to be reading that brings them through to the end. And writing that promise of the premise could really help with drafting. Okay, so so good question. Okay, this is also a really good question. How do you know when to stop adding to a story Bible? I struggled with that a lot. I'm like a goblin hoarding more info and turning into procrastination. So the good thing, well, okay, so for me, all of my story Bibles have been started mostly in October for Preptober. So I kind of spend all my energy in October prepping for writing the novel by doing the story binder. And then by the time November hits, I really don't add to it. I will still do the way I outlining by act, and I'll stick that in there. But I don't really spend the extra time making the aesthetics, going through hours and hours of personality quizzes that I can take. I make sure I do that before I start writing. But then after I finish the first draft, then I go right back into the story binder and I start making changes to it based on how I wrote, because I'm sure this is true for everybody. You can plan all you want for certain books, but things change when you actually start writing them. Yeah, I hope that answered your question. Okay, here's another question. Have you ever thought about putting your series Bible temple on Etsy? I have not. Etsy intimidates me. I could never, also because again, I'm not like creative like that. I could never sell something. Yeah. Also, I never make anything kind of. I take things from other people providing free resources and I put it in there. Yeah. Oh, yeah. This is really a really great things you can also put into your story binder, artwork, cover ideas. Yeah, this is all really great. Yeah, you guys are having that's what I assumed you meant, Carrow template. But like, yeah, like I said, none of my templates are created by me. Okay, so show and tell time. I'm going to show some of my how my story binders have evolved over the years. And actually, we're doing really good on time. I thought I'd be at like 9:15 by now. Okay, so Sharp Hollows, the first story binder I ever did. This is the one that I put everything in. Haven't used almost any of it. So, okay. Hold on, I'm going to get rid of this. Okay, here we go. So, I really hope you guys can see this. Okay, so yeah, as you can see, a lot of these I did not fill out because I ended up not needing them. But these are from the EA Devereaux stuff. And I just kind of put stuff. I don't even know what this is, but it seemed like something I thought I would need at the time. Oh, this seems like expressions to use if you're looking for stuff. Okay, so this is not my most impressive one. I feel like I should be showing my pirate one because it's better. Okay, so yeah, like I said, I put this in my outline. I put everything and nothing in this book, in this story binder. So yeah, this was definitely me learning what I like to have in a story binder. And this was all done prior to writing. So yeah, so this was like one way that I did family trees. I wrote them out. And yeah, I don't really care if you guys see because the story has a lot of work to do. So I did that with all like the families that are like important to the story. I did character templates and did some work on like the antagonists of the story because antagonists are just as important as your main character. And occupations, I did a lot of that. Okay, so we're going to skip ahead because I feel like, yeah, see, blank. Okay, so my outline and my plot. Blank. Okay, where is like, I almost just dropped my water. Okay, so here we go. I didn't do anything for that one. I haven't looked at the story binder in about 2 or 3 years. So yeah, okay, so here's the world building was kind of important. I think these are Vivian Reese's templates. I'm pretty sure. But major like geography and climate, major cities and landmarks. I think I put like I talked about the capital city, the ones close by. I did do a map for this one. I'm hoping it's somewhere in here, or it could be in another notebook. Who knows? Customs and government and politics. You can see I didn't fill out a lot of these things. I just kind of use it as like a jumping off point. Legal system, that's a good one. Not that I filled it out. Okay, and then I know I did a lot of, okay, so I kind of based part of my world off of Babylon, which is Lost City, which I really am big into history. So I was talking about trying to figure out like what it looked like, the different gods that were worshipped, and did a lot of like base research for that. And then the good old Industrial Revolution, I did a lot of stuff like that. How do they transport things? The class system obviously was a huge thing in the Industrial Revolution. And then of course I printed out pictures. They're in black and white, but that's what I was working with at the time. And this would help me with visualizing things a little bit better and writing descriptions. So that is it. Oh, see, I have a thing from NaNoWriMo, the 9 steps to build a strong plot. Thought it might be useful. This was only the second book that I wrote too, so I was still a little green. Okay, so that was that one. This one is a lot more cuter, if I have to admit. Okay, 15 minutes. We're gonna go quick. So this was Pair Prides. This was my pirate YA fantasy. I went a little bit more extra with the finer details, and I did my query here, some pitches for the book in the front, and then I got into the brain dump, which is what I kind of talked about earlier, and the characters did. This was one of the main characters, and then I did her quick figuring out who she is. Here's the 16 personality things that I printed out that it describes what she is. Yeah, okay. I went extra, you guys. This was the second main character. I did her little aesthetics, and they did pretty much the same thing with this one had 3 point of views. It now won't, which is sad. I'll always miss this version of this book. Okay, so then this was the last main boy character, and I did all of that for him. And then I kind of filled out the royal families that were involved with the book, wrote all of them out, and the countries too. Some of them are typed, some of them are written. But I wanted to show how I did the magic system for this one before we move on. Setting aesthetics. So this is the magic system. So I wrote out everything that was involved. It was elemental magic at the time. Now it won't be, but I talked about the different levels of the magic system, the limitations, which is also super important with a magic system, is to make sure that you have limits to the magic, because what's to say why aren't these magical people taking over the whole world, if that's the part of the plot, I guess. And yeah, so this was like, I actually had a lot of fun making this magic system, and now I'm not even going to use it. So, and then I also always have notebook or folders here at the end, and I stick things in that don't really fit right now into the binder, I guess. Okay, so I ended up doing really well with filling the time, you guys, because I have 2 more things to show you guys in 10 minutes to do it. Okay, so I'm going to quickly share my screen to show what I did with Scrivener. Okay, share screen. Okay. Okay. Someone asked how to use the binder while you are writing. I use it mostly as a pre-writing exercise. Also during revisions is when I do the most work for it. Okay, so I'm going to quickly move to this. I can't tell if you can see this, but I hope you can. So I actually took, this isn't my doc. I kind of pulled all the stuff that I used in the story in my current work in progress into a different doc, just so that you can kind of see what I included over here. So I did redact some things, just so that, I don't know, spoilers, because this is my current work in progress. But my main character is a mastery in poison making. So I wrote down all these like poisons that I think that she was going to use throughout the book. Some of these things are never mentioned. Like I said, the iceberg diagram, but at least it's there for me to reference later on in the book. I read through a book about poisons and found specific ingredients and different poisonings to use, and then I created my own names for them because it is a fantasy. So yeah. So I also have like a flashback. I redacted all of this, but I have a flashback that's important, even though it's not in the story. I wrote it anyway, just so that I was aware for like character development and stuff. Also, past dialogue is also really important in this book. Past dialogue to me is their really snippet dialogue flashbacks from a previous year for these characters. So I wanted to make sure that I was keeping all those like dialogues consistent. So I put them all into a doc as well. This is the family tree that I created. I did make this bigger. I really hope you guys can see this. Maybe I should check to make sure that everything is going correctly. Okay, yeah, okay, all of you guys can see this. Okay, so yeah, this was like the family tree that I did. Some of these, like, again, some of these children are never mentioned in the book, but at least I know that they exist. List of characters. This is also really important. These are the characters that I need to like always be referencing, different nobles, other characters that show up. Other characters that show up that I'm always keeping track of, so I know I named them. And this is, I need to add more to these because I haven't been adding to this. Religion also is very important. My religion is based off of Catholicism because that is the religion I was raised, so it's the most religion I know the most about. So I have different saint names here that I need to reference, holidays as well. And then here's my zodiac. So I went really, really extra with the zodiac compatibility here. My really close critique partner, she's a tarot reader and she's super into astrology. So like one afternoon, we just talked all about my characters and their different compatibility based on what their signs are in the different planets. We went really, really extra here, but I love it. I love how it turned out, but I redacted a lot of it because some of it was inappropriate. The states, so this was world building. Again, it's mostly what I did here was a list so that I could remember things. And then the timeline. I have really strict timeline here for the story. So I wanted to make sure that every day was kind of accounted for and that things were flowing correctly. And then, so this, I used I did a character sketch. This is actually a template that Scrivener does have. I do want to say that I am not very, I use Scrivener, but I only know about 10% of its capabilities, but I know it has this. So I filled all this out. I've redacted pretty much everything. But yeah, and then down here I have her notes of like all of her star signs, what her Myers-Briggs is. I still like to do that for my characters. And I did that the same thing. This is one of the other main characters. So yeah, so that was a quick version of the Scrivener section of it. I have places here. I haven't used them, but I thought I would show them for you guys if that was something that interests you. Because again, I have mine all listed out over here. Okay, 8 minutes left. There's one more thing I want to show you guys. Okay, so Pinterest is also what I've been using now as a visual story Bible, basically. And I find this to be extremely, extremely helpful. And I didn't even realize it's basically a visual story Bible until last night when I was thinking about what else do I use to help build my story. I use these. So this is what I do. I'll keep it in line with my current work in progress. This is the working title, Cruel Family. And I put everything in here from Pinterest that helps me visualize certain things. So mostly it's like the clothing that I really visualize with what they wear, the character vibes for the different characters in the story, setting, the religion and the culture, different quotes. That's not really as important. That's just for me. But this has been so, so helpful with visualizing the story and really bringing it to life. And I didn't even realize that until last night when I was making this outline. So, and you can do like these different subcategories, I guess, in one board. And I've done that now with all of my stories. Here's the pirate fantasy. I did the same thing. Aesthetics, character vibes, clothing, the necromancy and magic that was involved, pirate ships in the seas, the setting. So it's really helped bring the world to be 3D in a sense, if that makes sense. Yeah. So, okay. I went by really quickly with those last ones. So if you have any questions, okay, how do you find these pictures? Yeah, Pinterest is a rabbit hole. Like I will spend an hour just pinning stuff that I think fits my story. But I mean, you have to find the balance of, is this helping or am I just procrastinating. And when I get to that point where I am like, oh, I'm procrastinating now, I need to stop. But yeah, so how do you find these pictures? I just use Pinterest. I have an account on Pinterest. You guys can follow me if you want to for a good jumping off point to see like kind of what I pinned. My username over there is Ginger Reads Lane without the EY, because Pinterest wouldn't let me add the last two characters of my name. So it's just Ginger Reads Lane, LAIN, basically, because that's my name. And it's, I mean, I don't like, I had like 300, 400 pins on a certain thing. I didn't do that in one sitting. It's been like when I'm laying in bed before I go to sleep, I'll hop on Pinterest and I'll see, let me just pin a few things, and then I could spiral and spend a half hour on there. But I don't make it seem like it's the number one thing that's preventing me from continuing with actually writing. Okay. If there's any other questions, we have about 4 minutes left. So if there are questions, I would answer them. I am shocked that I made it the full hour talking. And can I say, with quarantine, this is the longest I've talked in one sitting. Is there an app that you use for your aesthetics? I use Layout. It's part of Instagram. It's an Instagram owned app. It's literally just called Layout. And here, hopefully I can show you real quick. Pictures. It's this one right here, Layout, and you can just make the three things. Yeah, you can make things like that, basically. So I find that's easier. And then I usually run through Visco to create a more better filter color scheme for all of the pictures that I've chosen. Yes. So how do you know your story Bible is finished? You never know. I feel like if I resurrected my Sharp Hollows project, it would have to do, like, a lot of things would have to be revised in that, and I'd be happy to do that because this is something that I really like to focus some of my creative energy into. Yeah, so okay. Okay, you guys are all so nice. Thank you. I feel like I was talking maybe like 500 miles an hour, so I really apologize for that too. Okay. Okay, but if there's any other questions, I just want to make sure that if there's any questions, I will make sure I answer them. Because I wasn't able to look at the chat when I was sharing the screen. It is very easy to get lost in Pinterest. I will agree. So just limit yourself. Yes. So, yeah. Okay. Yeah. So the Scrivener thing, don't worry about if you don't want Scrivener. It does cost money. I think if you win NaNoWriMo, you get like 40% off the program. And that's what I did. I waited until after NaNoWriMo, when I won 50,000 words, I waited for that coupon code, and then I bought Scrivener. I think it's like, is it like $40 full price? Maybe. I think. I don't know. It's been a while, but I often write my first drafts. This is a fun fact. I write my first drafts in Google Docs because I can secretly bring up Google Docs at work. And when I write my first draft while I'm at work, between working, and then I'll transfer all of that into a Scrivener doc for revision. Yeah. Could you show the categories later on so we can get a screenshot? Hold on. I know I have to like log off in a minute. Is it like these categories? Here, I'll hold this there for a second. Brainstorming, characters, outline and plot, world building, and research. Those are like the top 5 categories that I find the easiest to put things into, but it is always up to you how it works for you. Again, that's like the theme of this workshop. Find what works for you. Okay. I hope that answered your question. Okay. So Okay. So I guess that this is my time. It's over. I can't believe it. I made it like a full hour talking straight. So thank you guys for joining. I was really, really nervous about this, but you guys made it super fun. Thank you for all of the questions. And I can't wait to watch the rest of all the panels and stuff. This is a great weekend. Thank you again. And if you have any questions, you can find me on Instagram. It's Ginger Reads Lainey. You can find me on Twitter. It's Read Along Lainey. Not my favorite, but it is what it is. Yeah, all my DMs are always open. So if you have any questions, definitely reach out, and I'll be monitoring the comments if someone happens to comment on the video too. So yeah, any questions at all, don't hesitate to reach out. I love talking about this stuff. So yeah, also if you guys make story binders, let me know. I want to see what they look like. Send me them. Yeah, so hope you guys enjoyed this. Hope you found it useful. And I guess I'll see everybody in the next panel. Not that I'm on it, but I'll be in the comments. Okay, bye.